Hello everyone. In today's video we are covering all things Ableton, so hopefully this will be a complete roadmap of everything that you need to know to make the weekend Ableton session ready to go for your teams. So this is specifically mainly for music directors at Brook who week in and week out download the session and get it onto the computers at the campus, and we cover all things from literally downloading the session to transposing keys to transitions, looping clicks, some general mixing, and then of course routing it to the system at the end. We're going to timestamp every single section of this video, so if you have a very specific need, a specific thing you need to work on or learn about, you can go right to that section. Our good friend Bryce Richardson, who is the Ableton guru here at Brook, he's going to walk us through all that stuff now. So enjoy it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's very helpful, and we always come out with a lot of content. So do that. Okay, bye.
Click this link that you get from our email that we send out. Sends you to Dropbox, and you just go ahead and download that. All right, the zip is downloaded. Go ahead and expand that. And I guess I always move mine onto my desktop. Open it up, open it up. Here we are. So here's the baseline session that you get when you when you open it. Reference track should be muted. It's empty, isn't routed. None of these returns are routed. And then everything's in the original key, and you can see over here that G is the original key, 90 BPM. These are just labels. They don't actually affect anything. So yeah, basically first thing we do is look at your plan, and after your keys have been set by the worship leader, look at your plan and go ahead and transpose. Unless it's noted, these files will load up. They just take a little bit of time. Unless it's noted in the perk tracks to transpose, if they're unlabeled, so that would look like loop transpose. It would look something like that. If it's not noted that way, then you don't have to transpose it. There's no tones in it. So I just start at the bass track, even though it's muted, and so click that. The hand is kind of the cursor that highlights everything. So if you just click inside the track, it just makes the cursor mark. You have to do the hand. The hand is key. Select your first track to be transposed. Scroll down to the bottom and then hold Shift and click this last one. That will highlight all these clips. And then if your bottom third window is the effect rack, you just need to double click on this, on one of the clips where it's highlighted here, and then you kind of have to redo that again. So click on bass, scroll down to the bottom, hold Shift, and click your last track to be transposed. And then this will pop up. It's like these diagonal stripes here let you know that you have multiple clips, and it is even labeled here 17 clips. So that's all these tracks, 17. And then yeah, you just transpose with the transpose wheel. You can either click and drag down to transpose down, obviously, and then up, or you can just manually put in a number by clicking the value here and then -2 or whatever. Or -1, or if it's positive, you can just do the other way and then hit enter.
And those are semitones, so half steps either way.
Yep. Okay, so for reference, we'll take this down 3 half steps. That takes this from G, which we know it is because of this labeling here, down to the key of E. Sweet. So now it's transposed, and then kind of right off the bat, I just get into some mixing stuff. So we send out a session, and it's kind of like baseline mixed, which to us means if you just transposed and maybe you didn't have an MD on your team and you didn't really know what you were doing with Ableton, but it's in the right key, that your weekend is still going to be successful. So even if like some of the stuff isn't to your preference, it's still gonna, like, what the house hears and uses and what your audio engineer like uses still is gonna sound good with your band. So that's kind of like our mindset when we send out a session and make a mix. So sometimes you have more guitar stuff in there, sometimes it's less. Key stuff, kind of same idea. So here's this welcome loop. It's usually auto filtered, so it's kind of like a lower, right? You get into the, so this would be like the welcome loop, and then you get into the song.
1, 2, intro.
That filter opens up. Here's your intro.
Verse 1.
Sweet. So it sounds pretty good. And then kind of my approach, I guess, to this is just to play the song and start soloing stuff when kind of I see these waveforms pop up in guitars and in keys mostly. Synth bass, we usually don't have somebody playing a synth bass on stage, so I don't have to worry too hard about that. Same with perk stuff, but yeah, definitely like the tonal stuff, and depending on your team. So if you have 2 electric guitar players or 1, and just kind of depends on what you believe in there and stuff like that. So maybe if you have 1 electric guitar player, I would start like looking around for more rhythm stuff to add in. So it kind of just depends on your team, but for now we can just take it like this. So I'm gonna push play, and then I'm just gonna start soloing, which is obviously over here. So just kind of a texture thing, same here. Yeah, just like big washy stuff. And, you know, obviously trusting that the front of house, the audio guy is gonna mix that appropriately. So, meaning it's not gonna be like the most upfront thing, but thinking about like what that texture brings helps you decide whether to leave it in or not. So that's just part of mixing. I mean, I like all that stuff, so I'm gonna leave it in. And then keep on going with that. So this EG4 line. That seems like just a lot of the lead line to me. And some washy stuff. And then that's it for that track. So I'm gonna leave that for now to come back to some more specific mixing notes later. And then it's just kind of copy and paste that process. So kind of just going down and deciding if you want something or not. If you don't want it, just mute it and close it, or don't close it. Same thing. I use it. I mean, when you don't have a piano player, when you don't have a bass player, you just do the opposite. Open it up, and you can just have piano. That's kind of the beauty of having tracks for all our songs every weekend is you're gonna have a full team. So I'm gonna keep going down to key stuff. So you can see like all electric stuff is blue, all this key stuff, melodic stuff is green, and I'm just gonna listen to this as well.
1, 2.
So this one's interesting. If you are in the original key, maybe this is something that I would keep in, but because we're transposed down 3 half steps over here, it's not quite giving the vibe. It's like too artifacty. There's not enough like appropriate pitch. So I'm just gonna mute that. just like that, and close it. Keep rocking. I like that line. Sometimes you get into rehearsal and someone's like, I'm gonna play that line. So you just have your MD or whoever. Drummers sometimes know enough to be dangerous. They can just mute that or unmute it. That just happened to me last night. Somebody wasn't playing a line and they weren't going to, so I just turned that one on. Easy.
2. Intro.
That's great. I'm gonna leave that. Keys. This is probably all the like synthy patty stuff. I'm just gonna leave it. Great. And then there's one perk line. You can listen to it. I feel like I'm listening, and maybe I think that perk is actually a little hot. So maybe I just go into this mixer area here, and you can just put your values in. So I would maybe take that down 4 dB minus 4, enter, and make sure to click out of that so that you don't continue to change that value. So maybe I think that fits a little better, or keep going, I don't know.
Verse 1.
There are some songs where the perk, just the frequencies that it's at, it pops a little harder. So just keep an ear out for that. Sometimes it's easy to like look at a channel like this and just say there's only one, so it's okay. But it's good to remember it's got to fit in your context.
So this might be in the weeds a little bit, but let's say you're down the piano. Whatever, are we keeping the piano 3?
Yeah.
So let's say you want to keep this, but not that. Is it just as simple as chopping it up?
Yeah. Yeah, so this gets into a little kind of a deeper level, which I call maybe specific mixing. I'm looking at like certain lines, and this will actually bring us back to this EG4 line as well. Let's say we want this line here, but we don't want this one. For whatever reason.
Just sounded better the first time.
It just sounded better the first time. Or even like, maybe I just don't want that. Let's say that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so let's say we would just want to get rid of these 3 notes instead. I just click, highlight that area. So it's just a hold down, click and drag basically. Click, hold, drag over. And then I just deactivate that section. So I push 0. And then just remembering to like make a fade whenever because you don't want that to.
Right.
So. There you go. So I'm gonna use that on this little guitar line too. So. Well, I liked some of the washy stuff on here. Texture, right? But this is like the main lead line, so I'm assuming that my guitar player is going to play that
for sure, but maybe not.
Same thing up here. So what I'm going to do is highlight that area, push 0. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit. Highlight this area, 0. And then just, for good measure, just make my little fades here. And there. And there's nothing there, so it doesn't matter. And so I've got all this stuff.
N.
So now the guitar line's not there, right? Just kind of nice air. And honestly, you do come to a spot where it's like, maybe that's nice to be doubled or something like that. It's all preference based, but it's such a washy line. Here's another little maybe facet of this specific mixing is there might be sections where you want it, but you don't want it as loud. So instead of going into like automations or whatever, you can do the same thing, click and drag to highlight an entire area, and then you cut the edges. So if you're highlighted on an area, you can make 2 cuts simultaneously, one here and one here, here and here, by highlighting it and pushing Command E. That'll just make a cut on both sides. And then you can come down to this this sample effect area. It's set to minus 12.5. You can just bring it down to minus, I don't know, 20. You can use the click and drag up and down, or again, you can almost enter in values anywhere that there's something to be changed. So now it's more of like a really subtle but we have to remember that these are separated into different channels, different returns down here. So there's, it's on its own. So just to say, like, it can be mixed from front of house as well. Then we get back into here, and I'm gonna leave that kind of full volume because the other line, it's worth like getting into these other muted tracks too, just to see what else is gonna be happening. So it's like a pretty prominent dry line. That's like a really nice texture to have underneath your main electric guitar player playing, if it works. Obviously, if it's transposed too far, electrics in Ableton just kind of go out the window, but we're not too far. So that's kind of like specific mixing. Clipping to like submix, so take down volume, or deactivating areas to take out a whole section. So once you get all your songs kind of transposed, so we've just done Always Enough, but it's kind of copy and paste. So you get into Trust in God, start at bass, highlight down, transpose, let's say take that down too, to B flat or whatever. And then same thing, same God, start at bass, scroll down, shift, click, always with the hand to get the whole clip. And again, maybe down 1 to C from D flat. Got your original key here, and then you just count on your fingers like I do. So once you have your like keys set and all your kind of mixing done, then I usually get into transitions between songs. Obviously, sometimes you never know until you get to your campus and with your team, and kind of even how you guys land the endings of some of our songs. Sometimes they're like hard cuts that maybe don't translate into a space, especially maybe even a smaller space. So maybe you add an extra like sting at the end. You need to add in a little bit more time or whatever it is.
Outro.
So maybe you would hit another one there and let that ring. So this is where we hit transitions. To kind of insert a little bit more space, you just kind of click. So we use this hand to highlight a whole clip, and we use kind of our kind of traditional mouse to click into a space in a measure or a bar. So you click into the space. So you can click here in the bar line, and you can kind of see this like highlighted area, right? And then you go to create and insert silence. I would also like lock in maybe all these shorthands. They just make your life a lot easier. So click, Command I. This is like bars, beats. The first box is a number of bars. The second box is number of beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, or I guess if you're in 6/8 to 8, and then sub, I don't know. So I just kind of go a bar at a time. For this one, maybe I would just add in 1 bar. This is gonna make a big gap all the way up through your 1K tone and all the way down through your tracks. So this is where kind of some of the editing and making it cohesive comes into play. So anything that gets split, you want to kind of delete all this stuff, which is just click, scroll down, shift, click, just like every other thing, and and then do the opposite. So you want to highlight all these areas, and then use this little bracket tool. If you can see my mouse up here, bracket tool, to kind of just drag it out all the way to the end. Get rid of all this stuff that I'm doing right now. To drag it out to the end here. And then same thing with the tempo, like you don't want that to change into some other tempo. So drag that to the ends. Click, I'm going to leave it like that because I like a little sonic reprieve in my ears from click every once in a while. And then same thing with Synthi. You want to take the hour and take it all the way up to the beginning of the next locator. 1K is a little bit different. I always like 1K to start at the beginning of my session. So I drag, instead of dragging it just up to this edge, I kind of take it the other way and drag it to the left. Same kind of bracket tool, but it just, I don't have to like fine tune it. I can just swipe my mouse like all the way over to the left, and it's going to start right at the beginning where it's supposed to. So now we have kind of a different transition. Maybe something like that.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Not a ton of tracks in this one. This is mostly piano intro. So that's kind of how you do that. And then the other way is if there's too much time, since we have this gap here now, let's say that we want it to like cut really hard right into the next count in. All that you need to really do is click and drag to highlight up to that locator mark. And then this one is delete time here.
Nice.
So again, another shorthand. This up arrow is shift. So it's shift, command, delete, all kind of at the same time. Which is just, you don't have to mash them down at the same time. So command, shift, delete. And that's going to take out all that time, all the way up, and all the way down. The only thing that you have to kind of keep an eye on is now the ending of your tracks here, because it'll be like a hard cut.
1, 2.
So obviously that's not ideal. I take all my tracks, top to bottom, and drag them out kind of through 2 bars.
Through into the next song.
Yeah, you don't really want it to go any longer than this 2-bar count. So that's kind of like max, obviously, unless you're in the same key. But
is there a way to do a fade on all of them at the same time?
yes, there is. You just kind of like highlight the area that you want to have a fade on it, and it's Command Option F, and it'll do a fade. This one's a little bit finicky because sometimes you'll have tracks that aren't perfectly lined up, and you can't, like, even if it's, so I'm like way zoomed in here, even if it's like that, you know, like some tiny amount, and it won't do the fade. So if it's not working, it just means there's something that's kind of like misaligned. But for the most part, they're going to be lined up, and that's going to be kind of the easiest way. And what's nice about the fades is then you can grab all your clips and you can drag it, and the fade stays the same depth backwards into your clip. So if you needed the tracks to fade out sooner, so that you don't have any lasting tracks into your count in, you know, based on kind of whatever idea you're going for, you can back that all the way up, and then your fades kind of stay the same.
Ending. 1.
So it's not so harsh of a cut. Otherwise, it's just going to be like this.
Ending.
5, 6.
1, 2,
Little tail.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Sweet. When we get into a song that is, you know, transposed a little ways, you can kind of start hearing some stuff. I think we call them like artifacts. It's just like sounds and overtones that shouldn't be there. And you can't really get rid of them, but you can like kind of EQ your way out of some of the major ones. So we're transposed down 3 right now, but let's just for the fun of it, let's take this down -5. It's kind of like the danger zone, and it's also like we have a lot of male-led songs with females only leading. So this is like a pretty common scenario. You're down 5 or you're up 7 or you're down, you know, down 6 half steps or whatever. And you just start getting some wonky tracks. Most of the time, keys are going to be okay. You're not going to really notice a huge, you know. But when you get into like choir tracks, you start hearing this like gravelly thing that just sounds bad. And so my workaround is to go into the audio effects tab. If you have live, this is on there. Audio effects, and just drop an EQ. You can just click and drag an EQ 8 onto your channel. And then when you're playing the audio, you can kind of see some of the spikes here. But the like kind of, especially if you're like kind of new into EQing, especially tracks, EQing in general, kind of like fast way to figure out what you aren't loving is to play it and take one of these and just, I'm like clicking and dragging right now. So it's like finding which ones are kind of like most offensive to your ear. So I hear this like whistly tone. So you kind of just dip it a little bit. And then you can turn on this kind of like low pass at the top. So that's kind of like an easy way to make those BGVs a little more tolerable. And that's EQing. And that's honestly, when it comes to weekends, like that's the main plugin that I use.
So for any of the tracks like choir, keys, guitar, it's the same process. Just grab that EQ thing and find the offensive.
Yep, start from 0. So let's take something like piano. Let's say you don't have a piano player. You're using the tracks. You kind of drop this guy in, and this auto filter is from the welcome loop. So
6.
Right, that's on all of these channels there. So let's get into this area. We're using piano for our weekend because we don't have a keys player. I don't know, a little mid. Maybe bring a little bit of brightness to it. I don't know. This one's interesting because it's totally useless.
Verse 3.
So maybe that's good enough for your your audio guy. That's maybe what I would do if I didn't have a keys player, but I still wanted it, and then I would just maybe communicate with my audio engineer to kind of bury that in the mix, but you still want those support from the actual notes being played.
Yeah.
Electrics, when you're this far away, good luck. It's just starts getting wonky, especially if you're looking at like rhythm parts. Yeah, just all that like grainy. So when I get into like -4, -5, I start just kind of muting.
Yeah, you kind of just have to cut your losses at that point. Like, oh, it's just unusable.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's kind of transitions and starting to plug in some plugins. All right. So the kind of last bit when I am kind of looking at a session, when I've got things transposed, I've got, areas that I want quieter than other spots. I've got certain portions of our clips, muted. I'm going to take this piano off. So once I get kind of all the way there, if I get to a spot where maybe the tracks just aren't quite, or either this is specific to if you're transposing a song in that like kind of -5 half steps away area. So this is, a lot of times this is like a normally female-led song and a guy wants to sing it, or vice versa. You get into this like kind of halfway away from, you start getting these like really deep, especially mostly on keys, but sometimes even on BGB stuff too. You start getting like muddy keys tracks. And so kind of my workaround or my supplement to that is to actually duplicate the whole channel. So not the clip, but the channel. To duplicate, you just click on the channel and Command D. It's the same idea. Duplicating is the same idea everywhere, but if you do it with the clip, it'll just add it to the end here. So if I duplicate, it goes into the next song. So that's why you have to do the channel. And then I just go and I relabel this, Command R to rename. I'm gonna say down for the down octave one. And the workaround is just to duplicate and set one up the octave instead. So right now these are just doubled. So they're both down 5 half steps. To solo both at one time, you just need to solo one and then hold Command and solo the next track. Or you can click both of them and it'll solo them together. So this is so that we can hear both of them going at the same time. And then, yeah, just do the math. So if this one's down 5, that means this one is up 7. And then this is them playing together. Kind of organy because this one's so piercing. But if you kind of take them down about 2 or maybe 3. Let's do 2. And then basically using like, if the upper octave one sounds worse, you take that one down an additional 5. Or if the lower octave one sounds worse, you take that one down 5. So you have one that's kind of like prominent and one that's kind of sub, but just adds a little bit of like audio space to the mix. So I'm going to take kind of makes this sound organy, like Phantom of the Opera organ. So I'm going to take this one down -7 total, and then you get maybe I'll do more. Maybe I'll do more. Yeah, something like that. and then see how it fits in your mix.
Refrain.
So that's kind of a workaround to getting a more full sound. I find this is especially helpful if a female is leading a song and you need to pitch the song up. It's nice to pitch some tracks down. So if we've got an original, you know, if we're doing whatever, Same God, the original's D flat, a female singing it in G, it's actually nice to take the tracks down 7 instead of putting everything up 5, because of the kind of the frequency area that a female voice sits in is like you're now competing your tracks with the female voice.
Oh, yeah, makes sense.
So it's nice to fill out the lower end of your mix, and this is a really helpful way to do that. And then I honestly do the same thing with the choir tracks. When you listen right now, it's not going to sound very good, but mostly because we're going up 7. But you know, this is just another option as well. We've duplicated the tracks, which means the EQ is on both channels, but we'll need to change the EQ for the upper. So I'm going to relabel this again. Command R, rename, down, up. That's just for reference in case, you know, your audio person is like the high one needs to come down or whatever, so that you don't have to wonder which one it is. So first I solo the upper one and listen to where it needs to be EQ'd. That high whistle. And there's some like low. We believe you, bring the heart. So to my ear, this upper one actually sounds a little bit better. So I'm going to take both of them down 3, which you want to do because you're literally doubling the signal. So you don't want this volume to be twice as much. And then I'm just going to take this down one, down like 7, and kind of see how that hits my ear. Yeah.
Bridge.
Yeah, it kind of just adds a little bit of life to it. So that's kind of the last bit in transposing and making sure your mix is really kind of as best as it can be, especially if it's not like an ideal situation, which I think, you know, a lot of weekends we're transposing songs pretty far. So those are a couple tips to make that sound a little better. All right, so let's say you want to, you know, you're playing on your team and you guys kind of settle on wanting to maybe add a portion or maybe even take one out. Maybe that's like ditching the outro or doubling a bridge or doubling, I don't know, double a bridge, take out a chorus. So arrangement changes are obviously necessary. For weekend sessions, we include this roadmap, which is a really nice tool for drummers to get us into sections. We just highlight that area and then
verse 2.
It takes us into where we need to be. But it's also nice for editing to know where we're at. And for this little quick tip, which is you can just highlight that with the hand, always the hand. And let's just say you want to double a bridge. So the shorthand for that is Command Shift D, and that'll just duplicate that entire area. And so obviously now you have cuts in there. They don't really affect, other than maybe I would, you know, adjust my SMPTE hour just like we did before. Line it up to this locator, and same thing with the 1K tone. Drag that to the front. So we have a bridge.
Bridge.
Sorry, we have a bridge. So obviously that wasn't perfect, but we just go into our tracks and cover, basically we're covering the gap between our edit there. So we duplicated this entire bridge section, and we just need to take all these tracks. We need to take all these tracks and drag them over one more bar. And then you have a better flow.
Bridge.
So that's how to double a section. Let's talk about maybe taking out the outro just for, let's see what's happening here first.
Refrain. Outro.
All right, let's say you're being crazy and you just want it to end with a hard cut right there. So we know there's a hard cut here.
Ending.
Ba, 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 ba.
1.
So to delete an entire area, you want to do, so to duplicate an area, Command-Shift-D. To delete an entire area, delete time, Command-Shift-Delete. And then kind of same idea. Well, let's listen first.
Refrain. Ending.
Sick.
You can't laugh at the edit, bro. And then it's like, you know, kind of some fine tuning there. So we deleted the outro.
Ending.
Ba, 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 ba.
1, 2.
If you have this idea, don't do it. I don't know why you would do something like this, but there's a general idea. You have your refrain.
End. Ending.
Ba, 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 ba.
1, 2. 1, 2.
So that's how you delete an area, right? Command-Shift-Delete, and then kind of like go to the ends of both the beginning of the section and end of the section, like beginning of the chorus, end of the chorus, and just make your fades and like your fades and your kind of like pullovers appropriately, if that makes sense. So you delete a chorus, Command-Shift-Delete. You want to make sure that this transition feels right.
Bridge.
Sometimes it just does, and sometimes you need to adjust them to work. Let's talk about making a looping click. So first thing that you need to do is remember to pull this 1K tone all the way over. If you don't, it'll be flipping back and forth between the backup rig, and or maybe it'll just stay on the backup rig. So you want to have 1K available. You want to have your tempo file so that you are able to set what you need to set. And then you want to go up here where there's a speaker, right click and add locator. And you can name this whatever you want. Looping section, or whatever it is. And then you want to make a second locator. This is what the MIDI note later on will fire. We'll call this loop 3. You want to highlight the section in this channel to make a clip. So I highlight the length of area that I want the clip to be. I usually just I'd make it the full bar for looping sections. And then Command-Shift-M that creates the clip. It doesn't make a note. And then once you're down in this, the third section here, the lower third here, you just pick a note down here. So I just go from the top, from like G8 down. So if G8 is my loop 1, F sharp 8 is here, this loop 2, and I'm making a third loop. F would be obviously that third one down. Command M to go into like this MIDI mapping mode. A little alliteration for you guys. Click your loop and then push play, and it auto assigns. It assigns itself basically by running through that MIDI note and assigning it through your IAC driver. So now you can see this green flash. It means it's going to loop at the end of this area, and then it's just all the stuff that you need. So you want to click and drag to highlight an area of the click to put in, copy, paste. Now you can hear click looping. Command E to make this split so that you can do a new tempo if that's what you need. You know, maybe you want to do 90, or maybe you want to do something else. Come down to this segment BPM, and you can put your value in 90 or whatever. And then you need to toggle this leader follower thing. This is just a label, so I always like to rename it, just so I can remember what it's supposed to be. So this is obviously in 4/4 because our last song was in 4/4. But if you want to do a looping click, you know, say it's for a CP spot or something, and you want it to feel like the first song, you want to put, again, this little speaker symbol up top here. Right click, insert time signature, 6/8, just input the value on your keyboard. And then you need to adjust your bar lines appropriately. So now I have this 2 bar, 1, 2 bars, and then this is where the loop needs to start. And we'll drag that and kind of just like crop the edges. And now it's in 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Sick.
So that's that. All right, we're going to look at routing today for when you're on the campus computer. So you'll see usually on the desktop there is the specific routing. And then the first thing you want to do is note that the 1K tone is automatically routed to 10, so you don't have to do anything with that. And then for the SMPTE, usually it's set to no output. So on this external plugin, you just set it to 2, and that's it for that channel. Then the rest are just the returns at the bottom. So there are like numbers next to each of them, but you just want to make sure to coordinate kind of with your audio engineer which return goes to which channel, whether it's a stereo pair or whatever. The click is always to 1, but then there's like 3, 4, 5, 6. Sometimes EGs will go down 3, 4 to get that stereo thing. But yeah, basically you just want to look at this desktop and call it good.